Deep in the islands of Southeast Asia, long before written history took hold, a blade was born that would become more than a weapon. It would become a spirit, a symbol, and a story passed from hand to hand. This is the KRIS, known across Java, Bali, Malaysia, and the southern Philippines as the KERIS. Carvings on the ancient temples of Java, dating back over 1,000 years, already show warriors carrying this unmistakable wavy blade. Unlike any sword forged in the West, the KRIS was never just steel. Master smiths, known as empu, treated its creation as a sacred ritual, folding layers of iron and nickel-bearing metal together to create the rippling Damascus-like pattern called pamor. Each blade could take months, sometimes years to complete, and every wave along its edge, always an odd number, was said to carry meaning, from protection and luck to power in battle. In 2005, UNESCO recognized the KERIS as a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity, cementing its place not just as a weapon, but as one of the great cultural treasures of the world. For centuries, kings, warriors, and commoners alike believed a KRIS could hold the soul of its maker, or even the spirit of an ancestor, which is why so many were passed down as heirlooms rather than sold or traded. Today, that same ancient tradition lives on in modest workshops everywhere, where blacksmiths take ordinary, forgotten scraps of steel and breathe new life into them, reviving a centuries-old craft, one hammer strike at a time, proving that the spirit of the blade matters far more than where the steel began. And that is exactly where our story begins. Not in a royal workshop, but with a rusted, discarded gate lock pulled from years of neglect. It does not look like much. Pitted, orange with corrosion, seemingly worthless. But buried underneath that rust is dense, hardened steel. Steel that has already proven it can withstand years of weather and wear. That toughness is exactly what a blade needs. Before any fire is lit, the lock is inspected closely, checking the metal for cracks, judging its thickness, and picturing the blade hidden somewhere inside this unwanted piece of hardware. Tools are laid out along the workbench, hammers of different weights, tongs, files, and measuring tools. Everything a smith needs to turn intention into steel. There is something deeply satisfying about this process, taking what the world has thrown away and turning it into something with purpose again. A reminder that in blacksmithing, almost nothing is truly waste. The forge is fired up and the coals begin to glow. The rusty lock is buried into the heart of the fire, and within moments the orange creeps across its surface, then yellow, then a blinding white-hot glow as the steel reaches forging temperature. This is the moment everything changes. Cold, brittle rust gives way to soft, glowing metal that can be shaped by will and by force. Pulled from the flames with tongs, the steel is rushed to the anvil while it still holds its heat, because in blacksmithing, time is everything. Every second the metal cools is a second closer to losing its workability, and a good smith learns to read the color of the steel the way a sailor reads the sky, knowing exactly when it is ready and exactly when it needs to go back into the coals. The hammer comes down, again and again, in a steady, practiced rhythm. Sparks fly with every strike as the shapeless lump of metal begins to flatten and stretch. This is the drawing out process, where raw material slowly becomes recognizable steel. The blacksmith works with total focus, turning the piece, striking, turning again, coaxing the metal longer and thinner with every blow. Back to the fire it goes when the color fades and the steel stiffens, then back to the anvil to continue the process. This cycle of heat and hammer repeats over and over, the true heartbeat of traditional forging, each pass bringing the material closer to becoming a blade. There is no shortcut here, no machine to do the work faster. It is muscle, rhythm, and repetition. The same process smiths have relied on for 1,000 years, refined only by patience and by feel. Slowly, a shape starts to emerge. What was once a rusted lock is now clearly taking the form of a blade, with a defined spine beginning to separate from a thinning edge. The blacksmith works with careful, deliberate strikes now, no longer just drawing the metal out, but sculpting it, controlling the width, the taper, and the profile that will define the finished knife. Precision starts to matter more than force at this stage, and every hammer blow is placed with intention. Now comes the detail that makes this blade truly a KERIS, its iconic wavy silhouette. Using controlled, angled hammer strikes, the smith begins pushing the steel side to side along the length of the blade, creating the sinuous curves that have identified this weapon for 1,000 years. Next comes the sheath, or waranka, the traditional home for the blade when it is not in use. More wood is cut, measured, and hollowed out to match the exact wavy contour of the finished blade. A painstaking task, considering how the KERIS curves along its entire length. The interior is carefully carved and test-fitted again and again, ensuring the blade slides in smoothly without catching on the wood. The exterior is then shaped into a clean, traditional profile, giving the finished piece the classic silhouette recognized around the world. A form that has changed remarkably little across centuries, because, quite simply, it has never needed to. As the build nears its end, the blade receives its final treatment. It is cleaned, polished, and in many traditional builds, treated with a mild acid solution to bring out the contrast of the pamor pattern, that rippling, Damascus-like texture hidden within the folded steel. The waves seem to come alive under this treatment, light and dark bands weaving along the blade in a pattern that no two knives will ever share exactly alike. A light coat of oil is applied to protect the freshly finished steel and give it a final, deep luster. Finally, after hours of heat, hammer strikes, the transformation is complete. What began as a forgotten, rusted gate lock, destined for the scrap heap, now stands as a fully KERIS knife, wavy blade gleaming, handle fitted perfectly to the grip, and sheath cradling it exactly as tradition demands. It is tested for sharpness, held up to the light to admire the pamor pattern one final time, and set down as a finished piece. Proof that with fire, skill, and patience, even the most overlooked scrap of metal can be reborn into something extraordinary. What started the day as a rusted, forgotten gate lock now carries forward 1,000 years of craftsmanship in a single blade. A small, quiet reminder that transformation is always possible, in steel, and perhaps in anything else we are willing to place into the fire. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel.